My dad was dying. I begged for emergency leave. My manager said, "Not my problem. Cover your shift or you're fired." I took the week off. When I came back, the FBI and the CEO were waiting. My name is Elise Gardner, and the moment my manager Croft Brennan told me my dying father wasn't his problem changed everything about who I thought I was. I stood in that sterile break room still, wearing my stained uniform from the diner where I'd spent 3 years serving coffee to people who barely acknowledged my existence, begging this man for 1 week off because my dad was taking his final breaths in room 247 of General Hospital. Croft didn't even look up from his scheduling papers when he said, "Find coverage or don't bother coming back. Your personal drama isn't my concern." The words hit me like a freight train, derailing everything I believed about basic human decency. I'd worked every holiday, covered every 6 shift, stayed late without complaint, and this was my reward. My father, the quiet man who raised me alone after my mother abandoned us when I was 7, was dying, and this creature wearing a cheap tie was more concerned about weekend lunch rush coverage than my heart breaking into a million pieces. Before I tell you what happened next, could you please take a few seconds to tell me if you've ever had someone dismiss the most important moment of your life like it meant absolutely nothing? Because what I discovered about my father and what I did to that manager will change how you think about revenge forever. You need to hear this story until the very end, and also like, subscribe, and click the bell icon because this gets so much more twisted than you could ever imagine. I walked out of that diner without saying another word. Croft's voice followed me through the kitchen, shouting about how I'd never work in this town again, how he'd make sure everyone knew I was unreliable. I drove straight to the hospital where my father lay, connected to machines that beeped with the rhythm of his fading life. Arlo Gardner had been my whole world since I was a child. He worked from home doing what he called number crunching for boring government stuff, always hunched over multiple computer screens in our cramped apartment, wearing the same 3 button-down shirts he'd owned for a decade. Dad died on a Tuesday morning while I held his weathered hand. The nurse said he went peacefully, but peace felt impossible when my entire support system evaporated in that sterile room. I spent the next 6 days arranging a funeral. I couldn't afford fielding calls from his few colleagues who seemed genuinely shocked by his passing, and trying to figure out how someone making $11.05 an hour was supposed to handle burial costs, rent, and basic survival. The funeral was small. A handful of his co-workers showed up along